The truth is, as much as I would like to claim today leadership by Yale in this space, we're really following our students who've been asking tough questions and who've been taking the initiative that has made this gathering today possible. So doing the right thing is often hard. It's very difficult. But if you don't get recognized for doing the right thing, if you can't monetize doing the right thing, it gets so much harder. In fact, it might become unsustainable to do the right thing. And the most common question that I get teaching, and that many of my colleagues get teaching, is from our students, how can we do well by doing good? I suspect that everybody who's here this morning has been grappling with that question. How do we do well by doing good? Fortunately, more and more companies are finding answers to that question, and perhaps most interestingly and most excitingly, a broad, diverse set of companies, many of them represented here this morning, are converging on a similar answer, which is that telling true stories is one key, if not the key, to actually realizing that ideal of doing well by doing good.
I promise you I'm not the most depressing guy you've ever had come speak to you, but I think it's important that we ground ourselves in what's really happening out there. We sort of forgot, Economics 101, which are this idea of externalities. These are, again, the direct consequences of our behaviors, but because they're not measured on our P&Ls, they're not measured on our balance sheets, in economic terms, they don't exist. And so climate change, hypoxias, toxification, depletion of soils, literally nobody is accountable. We're not judged by it, and we're not, it doesn't show up on our stock price, et cetera. And it's this sort of foundation of mythology that I think has kind of put us into this place. This sort of onslaught of natural companies claiming a lot of the sort of halo of organic or the real sustainability benefits that really can only be found with organic have actually eaten a huge amount of share. And what has happened, of course, is when you're a natural versus an organic offering, you can get the halo of the benefits, but not sort of pay the toll, if you will let me be so blunt. We have realized that in a sea of confusion and with an enormous number of claims being made out there and all kinds of pretensions of naturality and so forth, we have discovered from our research and found that this is really the only way that we can cut through, is to just be really direct about it. Absolutely critical that we pick our issue, the one that we really want to communicate. We can't try to stand for everything because at some point you start to stand for nothing. Sustainability is a verb, right? It's not a noun. It's not an adjective. It's a process of becoming, and it's a continuous improvement process. Sustainability is more than an opportunity. I know we're here to talk about communicating and capitalizing and so forth. It's a profound responsibility, and indeed, I believe that unless business embraces this responsibility, there will be no future.
Brands, of the past have focused just on their logo, and that's really what's carried them. And now we're kind of seeing a new generation of consumers that want to go deeper. They want to know, like, you've been stuffing this logo in front of my face, but what is it that I'm buying? And that's what really we're focusing on. So it's not about do-gooder per se, it's about buying something that's a piece of quality, that they can know the history and heritage, and they can feel like they're buying into something, that they have an identity with each and every product that they're wearing. We see the communication with our customers as central to what we're doing. It is not a role that is given to an intern. It is not a role given to one person. We all, every single one of us on the team of 7 participate in responding to, it's not our customers, it's our community. And that the difference between seeing the people that we interact with as our community versus our customers is huge. And so it's time consuming, obviously. It is time consuming to respond to emails, to Twitter, to Facebook, but it is so important to what we're doing, especially at this stage in our company. So we think it's time investment well spent. And we're seeing the earliest payoff in those people really becoming the ambassadors of the brand.
rarely ever do you see a bumper sticker on a Prius, because the Prius is the bumper sticker, right? And FEED is the bumper sticker, right? It has this fashion element, it's very on trend, and it just says your values, states your values. And that is like the really hard place to get to. That is the brilliant place to get to. And brands, I think, that figure at Tesla, will, I mean, hopefully continue to get there, right? But we'll see. But there's just not a lot of brands that, Patagonia, in a sense, is that kind of brand. You're like wearing your values in a hip, cool way. And that's just, that's magic. That's really hard to do. Like the world is like, we're facing a crisis, and you're talking about like, a shower head. Like, it doesn't equate, And I've also felt like, but this is where the dialogue is today in America. Like, it's just very hard to move that other dialogue. Here's where we are. So let's try to, seed these choices into a marketplace, grow consciousness. I mean, it is that kind of hokiness a little bit. But I do feel as well that I would say that beyond simply a revenue number, I think we take great pride in saying we are helping hundreds of other small companies grow, right? And so it's not just about, at the end of the day, solving the big, giant, problem, but it's also about enabling lots and lots of people to actually, therefore, be employed in jobs that align with their values. So there's so much benefit to be had by going down this path, and we try to focus and remind ourselves of all of that, because I think that's how we measure success.
At the end of the day, how can we transform the norm of what it means to do business, right? Like, how can we show that you can do good in the world and also do well as a business, and that those things don't have to be separate ideas, and that they don't have to live within a CSR function and marketing department, that our CSR is everything we do. It permeates absolutely everything. So part of the reason this function sits with me is because we don't think of it as a marketing thing. So we're not just trying to sell more product by saying, hey, if you buy these, then we'll also give them away. It's more just, it's just baked into everything. Something that, I personally feel very challenged by is, how do we continue to scale with integrity as Warby Parker, and then how do we continue to scale the impact we're having in the world in a responsible way?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting challenge that I think we'll face soon. For the billion people out there in the world that don't have access to glasses, that's a statistic that makes absolutely no sense to me. Again, it's a very low-cost poverty alleviation tool. It's a problem that can be solved, and I would love to see us make a significant dent in that problem. It's a distribution challenge, and I would love for us to be able to help that.
Success for FEED would be that, in 5 years, 10 years, somebody logs on and there's a holding page that says fed, that there is no more world hunger. That's a lofty goal. So in the meantime, we're all very, very passionate about our mission of providing meals and feeding children. However, it's an even bigger idea, and we're more excited about people embracing conscious consumerism as a lifestyle and as something that it's not niche. It's a given that they can go to a store and there's always an option in clothing and apparel and accessories, food, home. It's never a sacrifice, because the product is always going to be just as good as something else that isn't a give back brand, but also that it's easily accessible. So it's not that you're just having to go onto the FEED website. We're building out, so Targets are going to be carrying it, Saks Fifth Avenue is carrying it. We have a lot of retailers that we work with, but we want this to always be an option that is easily accessible, and that people don't have to choose one or the other. That's the goal, to get to that point.
How we tell stories and why we tell stories, and what that narrative is that we create, has to spring true from something that is deeply authentic in who you are, the values that you embrace, and how you want to affect behavior. Because at the end of the day, we live in a world of choice, and that choice is dictated by a behavior that we encourage and or reward others to take.
Well, we look for mentors, right? We look for people who can show us how to be in this world in the way that allows us to become the best versions of ourselves. And that's what every brand, every organization, every cause has an opportunity to become, is that mentor that all of us are looking for to become the highest and best versions of ourselves. The reality is that storytelling has shaped societies. These myths that kind of are the glue of our societies are ones we've created. They persisted over many, many years. They've evolved, for sure.
Our success is going to be contingent on some very disruptive unlocks that, quite honestly, right now we have not identified. If we continue to play for the 0.7 seconds that people hold stock, in, over here in Wall Street, then we're playing the short-term game, and you just get into that cycle you can never get out of. So the idea is, and then he went on to say, and if you don't like that, what I've just told you, then don't buy our stock. Buy somebody else's stock. If you want to get into a long-term game with 400 brands, working day and night, 180,000 employees, pushing this thing, collaborating like crazy with anybody that wants to play, come with us. And so you probably, your next question would be, so you had a little bit of a down quarter three. And my retort and his retort would be, you're talking about a 9-day window, and you take out the weekends, you're talking about 72 days of a business. That's $52 billion. I mean, are we really going to judge the company on that? Because if that's the way you want to play, then I would have to say again, go buy another stock. But the idea is, we're in for the long term. We're in for the big game. We are growing our business. We are growing our brands. We're building in sustainable living into every one of our brand propositions, one by one, starting with the largest brand. We have 14 $1 billion brands. We'll take them on first, and then we'll move to the next.
We, together, as an entire portfolio, touch the lives of 2 billion consumers every day. So when you are actually talking through your brands and your products to 2 billion consumers, there's almost an obligation that we have as market leaders to really influence and shape consumer behavior, and how do we actually help them make the world a better place. So in a nutshell, we think this is a fantastic platform from which to start. We're going away from conspicuous consumption into conscious consumption, and trying to do that within the needs that our consumers tell us, because it can't be forced. It has to be opted into with the positivity that we think it will bring. Certainly at the high level, the ship has sailed. We are on a mission. This is our ambition, and to double the business and to have the footprint is embedded in the way we run the business. So before it would get to that point, I should say, we would have racked our brains trying to figure out why there needed to be a trade-off, frankly. So Paul pushes us every day on why does that have to be. And when you're this big, you can, you find it, if you're creative enough and if you're working with the right partners, it doesn't always have to be. And so it's about how to find those things. And I know that sounds, pretty cliche, but I've been amazed at the solutions and the ingenuity of some of our teams to come up with these things, however small.
Everybody who's got a smartphone in their hand, raise their right hand. Everybody who's got a smartphone, keep that hand up. Everybody who believes in human rights, raise their left hand. So therein lies the conflict. It's a lot like raising kids. At some point they come out of if you do a good job, they come out of your hands. And they go, and you're in a very counterintuitive position where you have to realize what you're losing is good and is the right thing. The analytics of a business are very easy. The philosophical positioning is really where the struggle and the endless angst of, doing the right thing. It's easier to not be transparent, and it's much easier just to myth make. In the end, there's no question about what you have to do. In your gut, you just have to figure out how to transition there. I think this country is the greatest country in the world for innovation. I think it's lacking consciousness. And I think as you add consciousness to our instinctive ability to adapt and change, we're going to figure it out. I just think it's in the end going to look very, very different than the system that we're looking at today.
The need to change the way we all think about what we produce and then what we buy as people is really essential to making a long-term change. How good is a growing economy if that economy is hurting the environment? And I think one of the questions that we haven't yet solved in our own company is what kind of growth is good, what kind of growth is justifiable. To bring the customers along with you, they have to have some sense of what can be done first. They can't be demanding something from you that you can't do, and you maintain a credible relationship with them.